So I just wanted to continue where I left off the last time. I think I brought it up to 2020. And what happened in 2020 is I sent a private emails out to a priest out in Ballybeg and the secretary out there, Henry Halligan. He printed off these emails and he passed them back to TD David Conlan, who I had mentioned in these emails amongst other issues. But as I said, they were private emails. Priest was a family friend. They were for nobody else's eyes, but Henry Halligan printed them off and passed them back to David Conlan of Sinn Féin. I think Mr. Halligan and Mr. Conlan, the fact that they were sharing information in this kind of manner, and then when you take into account there's another situation, like as we know, ongoing in Waterford, where certain victims were threatened with the IRA. And then, of course, then we have Mr. Conlan's comments a couple of years ago there, he's up the round, he was voted in. So I think there's clearly a link between these people, do you know what I mean? And they should be established, just in case there's other strings being pulled elsewhere. But going back to the story, anyway, that's what happened. That was in 2020. And it was actually a genuine Republican told me what was at the happening, if I'm being honest with you. Someone that doesn't agree with the whole kind of like suppressing information and hiding the actions of certain people. Let's just put it that way. A lot of us will know what I'm even talking about. But he informed me of this, so I knew of this. I was talking to my mother about it, and my mother would know these from years ago, and she said this is just them all over, sticking their nose into people's business, thinking they're self-righteous and all this kind of stuff. And basically she asked me to let it go, if I'm being honest with you. So I did let it go. For my mother's sake, I left it go. Then about 3 months afterwards, then I was at a funeral out in Ballybeg Church, and I was talking to the priest, and Henry Halligan was hanging around. My wife was there as well, and he was literally a foot or 2 foot away, like listening to everything that I was saying to the priest, and kind of like trying to usher the priest away from the conversation, literally like getting in between the conversation, trying to push the priest away from the conversation. And after talking to the priest, he was asking me about how my family was and how my brothers and how my sisters were, because as I said, he's a family friend. And I kind of realised then that he didn't know anything of me emails or anything. So I knew like what was at him and said to me about him passing the emails back to Mr. Conlan and deleting them was actually true, because the priest hadn't a clue of anything about these emails. So that was how I ended up arguing with the Halligans, basically. So I started uploading this kind of information and other information, because there was a number of stuff that I'd seen while I was working up in Children's Group Link many years before that. And I started putting stuff up online, being honest with you. And certain other people, seeing that I had the balls to call these people out and put it up online, they confided other information in me. Let's just put it that way. And a certain group of these people were reading me messages, private messages, so they knew that I had this information and that I was either been made aware of this information. So the usual kind of threats of the IRA was issued to certain people in an effort to try and suppress what we all know is what's going on at the moment. I can't really talk about it. We all know what I'm on about, and we all know I can't really talk about it. But this led to the brother of Mr. Halligan not too long ago threatening myself and my wife, and he made a reference to a certain situation in Waterford that they're trying to suppress. Many years they're trying to suppress this, and his brother made a reference to this. Now the guards are aware of this, but the guards won't look into it. Because if you went back over this, this is decades. We all know what I'm talking about here now, right? Decades this is going on, and it's not just one or two people, it's several people, several young girls, all saying the same kind of thing, about the same thing, the same actions. Do you know what I mean? And it was basically all covered up. If someone was to really truly look into this, was who knew about it? Do you know what I mean? Who covered this up? Now I happen to know that this was reported, because as I said, some people confide this stuff in me, and I'm not going to break anyone's confidence if they're watching this and they think I am. But some people have sent me some kind of evidence, let's just put it that way. And they know I have this, and they know I have this information, but it's several people all made the same kind of stuff, more or less about the same people. And I say people because it's plural. It's not just person, it's people. And there were several people who actually knew of this. This was all reported to several people, but the whole nepotistic way that charity up there was ran kind of suppressed this information, like for many, many years. But anyway, getting back to 2020, that's how that all blew up with myself and the Halligans. He intervened and passed emails that I had sent privately to a family friend in Ballybeg, and he passed them back to Mr. Cullen. And for my mother's sake, then, being honest with you, she asked me to forget about it, as I just said. So I did as she asked, and I kind of forgot about it. And then, unfortunately, my mother passed away in 2021. And as I said, he was a family friend, the priest. So my mother left wishes for this priest to say some prayers at her mass. So obviously, this would set alarm bells off from Mr. Halligan, because he didn't want my family and the priest kind of crossing paths in case it was disclosed of what he was after doing with my emails previously. Now, I already knew this. He didn't know I knew this. I knew this. My mother knew this. The person that told me knew this. But I spent a couple of days trying to contact the priest again, and I ended up going to my sisters. Then I said, look, I can't deal with him. I knew what he was after doing, and I knew why he wouldn't pass the information onto the priest. So I asked my sisters to handle it. So my sisters were ringing and leaving messages, and same thing. He just wouldn't let my family and this priest, even though he's a family friend, interact with each other to carry out my mother's wishes. And this is the kind of person that you have working out in the church. But this went on for several days, till eventually then he has a friend. He's actually related to me, believe it or not, but like it's only through kind of like through my mother's side of the family. Like I wouldn't have anything to do with him. But he got his friend to ring up Thompson's funeral home, and he tried to arrange a priest behind my family's back, a different priest, to try and cover his tracks, try and cover his arse basically. That's how despicable that person is. So obviously I tried to keep my composure. And I was going up to Thompson's there one day, and as we know, there's a tracker on my car. I don't want to go into details too much because I sound kind of crazy talking about all this kind of track. And here was Mr. Halligan waiting down the end of the hill, waiting for me to come up in the car. And as I was driving up, there's no word of it, he was literally running along next to me in the car, knocking on the window, begging me, please, John, tell me what you think I did. Please, John, tell me what you think I did. Tell me what you think you know. That's what he kept banging on. That's what he kept saying, banging on the window. Now, I grew up like around the corner from this person, and I could really go into details about this person, but I'm not going to. Let's just put it this way: I have no time for this person, and neither does like one of my mates who's passed away. Let's just put it that way. But I would have no dealings with this person whatsoever. But here he was running along next to me, begging to find out like what I knew. Obviously, he was kind of after putting two and two together himself, I'd say. But that's what happened anyway. So I said I'd wait until after the funeral anyway, and I'd contact the bishop. So after the funeral then, I contacted the bishop. As I said, I put it all in writing. I contacted the bishop, I think 10 times, 10 emails, letters, and he kept ignoring me. Then I went to a solicitor because I wanted to take this further. And I found out then the solicitor that was representing the Halligan family was the same solicitor that was representing the bishop. Do you know what I mean? So I was kind of screwed on that one. But after 10 times of being ignored by Bishop Alphonsus then, I wrote him a letter, basically, and I registered posted the letter. And I said in the letter, I'm going to upload this letter up onto social media, and I'm going to send a copy of it to every priest in Waterford to show how I'm being treated. And suddenly he answered me. And he apologised for the passing of my mother, and he apologised about the way like my family was treated at the hands of Mr. Halligan, and this was going to be looked into and dealt with. And basically he went back then to just ignore me, completely ignore me. The usual, like this was going on in Waterford, as we know. This is what's being pushed in an effort to try and suppress this. So he was ignoring me, and eventually then, because I done the same again, I wrote a letter. I said I'm going to upload all these messages again. He wrote back then eventually saying that I had been treated justly and it was a parish issue, basically saying it was nothing to do with him. He basically sided with political influence, of which Henry Halligan has, as we know, and he failed to kind of deal with like what should have been dealt with. And this is the person now that you have out in Ballybeg Church like putting confession into people's mouths. So that's how I ended up arguing with the Halligans. That all began in 2020. So I started putting that up online and making certain kind of other kind of stuff that I knew about, because as I said, I had a friend who's passed away there now, who had some dealings years ago through Children's Group Link with some of these. And I started saying stuff that I had seen myself up there. Several people started contacting me then, and they knew by some of the things that I was saying that I was telling the truth, because they had a similar kind of story. So obviously the shit hit the fan, and what was being suppressed for many, many years in Waterford was slowly starting to leak out. And as we know there, the 29th of March this year, which is 2023, I was approached by Mr. Halligan's brother, who tried to threaten me with my wife and my daughter in the car. But not just that, he alluded to the fact of that he was at been reading me messages, and he asked me to pass a message on to someone that was after privately messaging me regarding a certain other issue that's ongoing for years. So he basically tied himself and his family and Children's Group Link to this situation. I'd imagine then they were hoping then I'd upload it all, and then I'd prejudice any cases that were kind of forthcoming. But the guards are aware of this, and the guards won't take this information. They won't look into this information, because as we know, for like not months, not years, decades, the guards have been turning a blind eye, in my personal opinion. And certain members of the Halligan family now know that I have messages and other information that they don't want me leaking out. So it's in their interest to kind of like to create all this hype to try and get people to ignore me. Do you know what I mean? This is assisted by David Conan's cronies, who I said had been swapping emails with Henry Halligan's that I was sending to the police privately. So like that connection needs to be established, especially the seriousness of another situation that's going on in Waterford. Not sure if you can hear that there, and you can hear the sirens in the background. This happens 30, 40 times a day. Just giving a minute for that to pass. There you go, stopped. I happen to know that certain people reported certain situations to people they know, because they're after reading through some of my messages and some of my emails, that certain people confided information in me. And not only that, but it shows that other people around that circle were aware of the actions of some people up there. So there's several people all aware. I'm trying to choose my words here carefully. They were made aware of what was going on up there, and this ring basically kept this information suppressed. And I use the word ring purposely here, if I'm being honest with you. And these people kept this information like suppressed, and if it was to get out of who knew what and who assisted like suppressing this information, this shit would hit the fan in Waterford. Because you have civil servants, those are the highest level after working their way up in Waterford, who are privy to this information, and some of them were even promoted. Despite all these numerous allegations by different people were promoted. So I'll get back to my story there. So I'll get back to trying to explain this. So that's what happens in 2021 after my mother passed. Bishop Alphonsus failed to deal with the actions of Mr. Henry Halligan. And I started putting stuff up online, basically. And when my mother passed away, actually my ex, this in 2021, she sent me down a photograph of her mother. Like, that's how nasty this person is, and that's who started all this. Sorry. And I will get to her, because she's after putting out so many lies, like trying to fabricate her past. Like, I am going to like call this person out, and I'm going to show you how much of a liar this person is. I've been listening to some of her interviews and stuff. Like I've said years ago, when I was in rehab, because that's where I met her, she was told that she shouldn't do hair for 2 years, because they said it was creating an imbalance in her personality, which I always say she has to be the centre of attention. I've said this ages ago, but now she's at the putting a spin on it in one of her interviews, saying that she was told not to do hair for 2 years because it was leading her to drugs. This is what she said in an interview now. So how can doing hair lead you to taking drugs? Like, are you saying that your clients are selling drugs? Are you saying that you are bringing your clients drugs? Like, that's ridiculous. She was told not to do hair because there was an imbalance because she constantly craved social acceptance. Do you know what I mean? But I'll get to all of that in due course, and I'll show documentation that supports everything that I say, and it shows her to be the lawyer that she is. And I was doing a psychology course out in Tramore in 2014, and myself and my ex, we got lured into this kind of religion. It's called the Baha'i, Bahai. A few people will be able to hear me talking about this thing, but we were lured into this. This was done by the tutor. Now, this is totally like kind of misconduct at the highest level. Like, you're not supposed to bring up religion or kind of like sexual preferences, whatever the fucking word is. But myself and my ex were lured into this religion, this Baha'i religion. These by a husband and wife. She's a psychologist for the HSC. She's pulling the strings from my ex basically, but her husband was the one who kind of like initially began this whole kind of luring people from the classroom basically up to his house, because this were these prayer meetings. They were up in the tutor's house. Like, how weird is that? And they're trying to play this down. And I was told that the person I made the complaint to out in Tramore ETB was actually a friend of the tutor. So obviously I contacted Tramore ETB, and I expressed me concerns, like, was my complaint handled correctly? And they sent me out a letter, and I'm not sure, there's the letter there, but they sent me out the letter, and what they wrote on the letter 2016 in biro, and then they photocopied the letter to make it look like it was from 2016. It was obviously printed in 2021, and they're saying that my complaint was dealt with, and that this person hadn't invited any of the students up to his house or spoken about the religion. And then on the second sentence, I'll just read actually what was in the letter. Right? Following interest from learners, he offered information on the Baha'i faith. This occurred outside of the classroom during the breaks, during conversation. So are we really to believe, right, that the students in the class randomly decided to like inquire about a religion that him and his wife are recruiting for? A Baha'i religion. Do you know what I mean? Think about that and think of like the odds on that. And they're trying to say that it happened on the lunch break, so it was nothing to do with them. Well, he would have been getting paid on the lunch break, and it happened on the premises, so it is something to do with Tramore ETB. So they're lying there also, like, and if we're really to believe that students randomly inquired about a religion that he just happened to be recruiting for, so obviously he would have had to bring it up then, just like I said, unless the students like were able to read his mind. But there was several students invited up to his house. As I said, that's where these prayer groups kind of things. I can't really explain this. I explained it in previous videos, and I don't really want to go into it again. It's a crazy situation. I deemed it to be a cult, and you'd have to go back to my older videos to kind of find out more about this. But as I said, they sent me out the letter in 2021, and they wrote, you can see that I have a circle of biro. Well, that says 2016 in biro, photocopied. So I asked, can I see the original complaint? Because surely you'd have it on file. If you're able to print it off, obviously you'd have it on the file, would you not? And then they told me to stop contacting the place. So that was Tramore ETB. That was their input to this. Like Waterford Council, through the years, Waterford Council are very aware of the misconduct of their staff, especially CEO Michael Walsh. I've called him out. Now I know that in a couple of videos, but I've sent him documentation to show the misconduct of his staff, and he's failed to act. Waterford Gardaí, I'm still waiting to be contacted by them. My wife haven't been asked. My wife still hasn't been asked even for her statement. Do you know what I mean? Regarding Mr. kind of Halligan approaching us, trying to get me to pass a message to a potential witness in a certain case, despite bail conditions being very strict. Like this alone, the guards should investigate, but they won't. there was another issue that was being investigated. It's supposed to be a complaint that was summoned, and they basically said there was no breach. There was a breach, right? But they basically said there was no breach, and the letter came back. It was the 9th of March, and I received that letter on the 29th of March. So it was missing for almost 3 weeks. And then I was informed then that I had 4 weeks to appeal. So it was purposely held back for 3 weeks and give me 1 week to appeal. But this letter was opened, and I can't go into the details how I know this letter was opened. But the guards won't look into it because they don't want to know. Not sure if you can hear that sirens are going again. But I'm still waiting for the guards to look into this. I got a letter saying that they were looking into it. I don't know how, because they haven't even spoken to me. They haven't even asked me how I know that this letter was opened. But the letter was opened. Like, the guards are up to their necks protecting certain people. And I've said this for years, David Conlan being one of them. Do you know what I mean? Like, if he's an example of what Sinn Féin has to offer the country for the future, we're in serious jeopardy, I can tell you that. But this psychologist who kind of lured myself and my ex in, she was using the HSC to lure people into this Baha'i religion thing, and I started bringing attention to it. There's an advert, I don't know if you see it now, I've shown all this before. See the HSC mark, and there's the Baha'i thing. See Baha'i, that's the symbol of it, and there you have the HSC there. Like, if they're going to be promoting a religion, they should promote all religions. Why are they promoting the one religion a year after I started talking about the goings on inside this religion? And then they're using me ex as some kind of role model with all her lies. Like, this is a letter from my daughter on the, you can see the Baha'i sign there again. Now, why would that provoke? Why would you have a 12-year-old draw that on a letter? Do you know what I mean? Obviously, it was to provoke me. And the date that's wrote on the top of that's why I said it's actually the 28th of 7th, 2021, and that's actually my birthday. So, do you know what I mean? But she felt the need to send that. And this is just the person that's supposed to be a kind of role model. Do you know what I mean? But there you go. There you have the HSC there now, promoting this religion. As I said, that psychologist had a previous kind of interaction with my family where she basically covered up claims of sexual abuse. If I'm being honest with you, not by me. I was only a witness sitting in on the interview, and she decided that she was going to keep it internal, and she was going to keep the guards out of it. I didn't know that this was the same person that lured in my family years later. So there was gross misconduct there. But even to just kind of prevent this person being around vulnerable people, which is basically what she is, they need to just establish whether or not I'm telling the truth. Because I could be lying. And then if I'm lying, then you can hold me accountable. But at the same time, I could also be telling the truth. And you have a person that's recruiting for a religion, which I deem to be a cult. There's loads within this religion that they don't tell you about. They have their own laws, their own sentences. It's some crazy stuff, being honest with you. I only went along with it because I didn't want my kids being brought back to Ballymun. So I've done it to keep my ex happy. And while she's on her podcast claiming that she kind of walked out of Ashery in 2008 and never took a drug since, this is all complete lies. And as I said, I'll get to that in the video soon. I just want to get this explained because I want to start uploading some documents. But that's how I ended up arguing then with the Halligans. And then that brought other people. And then because I started being so vocal about the kind of how strings have been pulled for this crowd for years, but through intimidation, through Sinn Féin. And then what happened is then people started confiding stuff in me. And they knew that they were confiding, so they started panicking. And this is why that dope tried to provoke myself. Trying to come up to me with my wife and my child. Any other day I would have got out of the car and I would have flattened him, do you know what I mean? If I'm being honest with you. But that was the whole idea of it. But in his eagerness to try and provoke me, he mentioned a certain thing that tied his family and those up in Children's Group linked. He connected all of these dots for these people. And the guards know this and they won't even look into this. The amount of professional misconduct now that's spanning various people and organisations, and it's all interlinked through hypocrisy, cronyism and corruption. Even in this situation alone, if nothing else, it shows how wrong and how corrupt the system in Waterford is. My constitutional right to have a fair procedure, to have this like investigated, and then we can establish like who's lying and like what should be investigated. My rights are being treated are privileges, whereas if I speak about a certain thing, they're being taken away. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm talking about the truth. It'd be different if I was lying, and you could say, well, we'll hold him accountable for lying and kind of. But I'm telling the truth, and they're removing my right to have this like addressed, to have these people held accountable. And there's certain TDs and councillors in Waterford who are aware, very aware of what's going on, and they're quite happy to rub shoulders with the same people who covered up for these people for decades, and they're still rubbing shoulders with them. There's other councillors who actually try to do the right thing, but they feel like they're up against a brick wall over the power of these corrupt individuals involved. A huge effort is to undermine me and discredit me. This is what was done to some of the victims regarding like some of the stuff. They try to discredit the people, and they're trying to push people that don't share what I have to say, don't pay any attention to it. And the reason why that is because it's all true what I say. So like Waterford Gardaí, you're copied the balls yet again there now after opening my mail. I believe that's a crime in itself. I can prove that. I'd like it looked into. I'd like my wife's statement taken. Like we're going into weeks now, and you haven't once like approached my wife to take her statement. They said they ran out of time on the day because I went up and made a statement, obviously, and I'd like the Pulse ID number for that as well because I want to take that forward. And I would have uploaded the video, but I didn't want to prejudice another person's case. It's not even my case. I wouldn't mind prejudicing my own case, but I didn't want to kind of risk prejudicing somebody else's case, which is what the whole reason of this dope trying to provoke me was, hoping that I'd upload the video. And this person then is the face of the Irish Kidney Association while he's going around passing threats. Do you know what I mean? Unbelievable. It's about time charities in Ireland now stood up and started kind of like starting putting some distance between themselves and the leeches that are attached to them. There's certain people at the top of the highest social civil service in Waterford that not only know of the abusive power that has gone on for years, decades, not only were they aware of it, but they assisted in covering it up. And even at one point, they attempted to like have certain people placed into the political arena in an effort to discredit the victims. Do you know what I mean? It's bad enough you're naming charities after certain people who were aware of the allegations and decided not to report it. The hypocrisy in this town is unbelievable. And whereas I'm deemed then as being kind of like a loose cannon or kind of mentally unwell or kind of like a sexual predator, like everything in that, basically to discredit me, like, do you know what I mean? Because I have the balls to speak the truth. It'd be different if I was lying. I could understand getting all this shit, like if I was lying. Like I'm aware that Waterford Gardaí, along with members of a certain charity, were all informed of what was going on for years. And for years, it was all covered up and suppressed. And they were going to do it again. Except they knew that by me getting the information that I'd be more likely to kind of come out and say it on social media regardless of the consequences. Like if the truth of all of this, not just my own stuff, but other stuff surrounding it, if it was to ever get out, like it would kind of question the whole kind of integrity of the system in Waterford. Because this spans like TDs, solicitors, Garda, do you know what I mean? Charities, where they can't really it's so corrupt they can't investigate. What has changed, like when you think about it? You have Sinn Féin carrying on like a bunch of criminals, like trying to like hide their actions. Of David Conlan trying to make my wife look like a liar. Like the only liar is Mr. Conlan. We all know this without getting all worked up about it. Like he is a liar in the story. But you'll all vote him back in again, so. But you need to establish what's the link between Mr. Conlan and the Halligans. Do you know what I mean? And then you have people being like threatened by the IRA that want to come forward. Then you have Mr. Conlan when he's up the IRA. I think that's all relevant and it should be called out and it should be questioned. But because I'm like unemployed, that's the way they look at me, like with a criminal record, like you don't have to listen to him. And if I was a TD, they might listen to me. I think it was Jonathan Sugarman 14, 15 years ago. I think he called out the kind of Irish state, saying that no matter what organ of the state, uh, that the whistleblower was attempting to kind of accuse, their life was made hell. And this is basically it. This is what we should be getting away from, is this kind of like culture of kind of like covering up for the perpetrators. I'm aware there now I'm going to get nowhere with this, if I'm being honest with you. But what I can do is I can try and bring attention to the people that have been pulling strings and the neglect from Waterford Gardaí in an effort to protect certain people. I can highlight this kind of stuff and keep talking about it. And I'll upload all my documentation that supports everything that I'm after saying on my own website there. I haven't gotten around yet to fixing it up. About.com, and I'll put all my information up there, and if they want me then to take it down, they can bring me to court. Said it before, I'd only love to go in front of a judge. So that's what happened in 2021 after my mother passed away, basically in May. And then, as we know, then I was assaulted in July 2021. The guards were made aware of this in August 2021. Now, I happen to know that the people that were involved in this, like, they were encouraged to come down and kind of like hang around me in-laws as a way of kind of harassing me, kind of by a member of Sinn Féin. We both kind of understand that we were both being used against each other, but I'll talk about all that kind of like from further on. Because I want to highlight how much the guards knew about that situation, and they done nothing about it, and they stood back while my in-laws were harassed. Then I kind of settled my differences with this person. As I said, like he was being used, he was being played off me, I was being played off of him, kind of basically, and the guards were standing back. And this was only benefiting the likes of David Conlan and the Halligans and the guards. So basically, when we spoke, we kind of settled our differences, let's just put it that way. And because we settled our differences, then all of a sudden, then the guards, on Christmas Day, this was actually the 25th of December, they sent me an email trying to get me mother-in-law to press charges against this person. Do you know what I mean? But I'll talk about that now in the next video. And I just wanted to kind of update it a little bit. So I'll talk about that now in the next video more, because that's 2021. And that will be kind of like wrapping up all this crazy story. And then I can start uploading me documentation and me paperwork that supports what I'm saying. Obviously, I can't upload it all because I'd be giving the other side basically too much knowledge of what information I have. And when I finish now explaining this now, I'll start uploading this documentation once and for all there now. And then I'm going to start, hopefully, I'm going to try and do a vlog, and I'm going to show you, even with the evidence, because I want to show the evidence first before I submit it to certain parties, because I want to show you how they deal with the evidence once it's submitted to them. And Waterford Gardaí, you need to know once and for all there now, cut your losses there now regarding Mr. Conlan, the Halligans, and your corrupt Garda. Do you know what I mean? Basically, who's after getting caught by the balls multiple times now at this stage, and you want to do your job. And that goes for Waterford Council as well. CEO Michael Walsh. Do you know what I mean? You're aware of the misconduct of your staff. Do you know what I mean? Are you really going to believe that myself and my wife chose to leave a house and all our possessions and all that? Like, do you know what I mean? Gross misconduct. But they know I can't get a solicitor in Waterford. I was foolish enough to think that this could be kept within Waterford and kind of dealt with, because I thought there was some integrity within Waterford. There's not. The whole town is just rotten with corruption, if I'm being honest with you. And because I'm saying it like it is there now, they're trying to discredit me, just like they try to discredit victims of another situation. And this is the way, unfortunately, the system works in Waterford. So I leave it there, and in my next video then I'll explain from kind of 2021 up to 2023, and then I can start uploading the paperwork, and I'll explain what the paperwork is as I upload it. But as for that psychologist that's employed by Waterford Tussla, who started all this with me ex, she needs to be investigated. She was involved in a case regarding a person, I won't say their name, but I was a witness in the case. This person was involved. This person kept the guards out of a situation where there was a criminality alleged, and this person took it upon herself to kind of clean up the whole situation and help out the kind of Waterford Tussle, and now Waterford Tussle in turn are covering her arse, basically. And then again, and I could be lying at the same time, but go and check, and if I'm not lying, you're putting vulnerable people around this woman. So I'll just leave it there now, and I'll get back to you in a few days. I'm kind of only uploading a video there once a week because I have a couple of things on. But I'm in no way giving up, and I intend to now start doing a vlog there now as soon as I get this explained and uploaded, because I want to show how certain parties deal with certain situations, even when you provide evidence, how they deal with it. And Waterford Gardaí, you want to start looking into the evidence now of how I was threatened, and more importantly, his message that he tried to pass through me to another person. Do you know what I mean? So I'll leave it there. Thanks.